And joining us now is Amber Athey, Washington editor at The Spectator and host of the Unfit to Print podcast. Amber, great to see you. Thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. As you know, and as mentioned, a lot happened over the weekend, including protests at some Catholic churches, including in Los Angeles, and a particularly vile protest outside of Old St. Patrick Church in New York. But one of the most extreme forms of protest took place at a pro-life organization in Wisconsin, where molotov cocktails were thrown into the building and a fire was set. Graffiti was also spray painted on the building that said, "If abortions aren't safe, then you aren't either." Amber, help us unpack all of this. I mean, it's really hard to wrap your mind around it.
I think everything that we've seen since this draft opinion was leaked to Politico is an intimidation tactic to try to get the justices to change their minds on this draft opinion. Chief Justice John Roberts has acknowledged that this draft opinion is real. He did say it's not final. However, he's also promised to investigate who the leaker was and, of course, what their intentions were. But really what's saddening to see is that it took the Biden administration almost a week to denounce some of these intimidation tactics. And even still, they've only talked about specific instances of violence without making clear that these protests outside of the homes of the Supreme Court justices, as well as the attempts to intrude on Catholic masses, are really just two sides of the same coin. All of these instances, whether they're expressly violent or not, are all attempts to intimidate, and therefore could be considered obstruction of justice, or in the case of the interruptions of the masses, against an act that prevents people from allowing the free exercise of religion. So these are all contemptible and need to be spoken against very strongly by the Biden administration to make sure that these actions don't continue.
Yeah, we were just looking at some video right there from some of the protesters outside of some of the justices' homes in the D.C. area. We're also learning that now all of the justices apparently have been given extra security. I want to get your thoughts on that. And as far as the protests outside of their homes, what more do we know about that, and are they even legal?
Yeah, I mean, there's a great argument that they're not legal, that these could be considered obstruction of justice. It actually says pretty specifically in the United States Code that people are not allowed to protest or demonstrate outside of the buildings that justices are present in, with the intention of trying to get them to change their opinion, particularly during an ongoing case. So I think that it's pretty clear that these could be considered illegal demonstrations because they are in attempts to intimidate these justices into changing their opinion. And these people have described these as candlelight vigils, but when you actually watch the videos of what they're doing, they're outside the homes of these people who live with their families, with their young children. They're shouting. They are clearly very raucous and are walking back and forth, specifically between the homes of Justice Brett Kavanaugh and Justice John Roberts, who have received extra security as a result. So this is definitely a step too far. This is not a peaceful protest by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I think anybody could agree with that for sure. Before I let you go, Amber, where do you see all of this going, and what do you think needs to be done? I mean, how can people exercise their First Amendment rights while avoiding the violence and destruction that we've been seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference between people making their voices heard in a way that is peaceful, in a way that is consistent with the concept of your First Amendment rights. And then the other side of this is in a way where you are intentionally trying to intimidate and scare people into changing their opinions. That is an entirely different beast. And unfortunately, unless the Biden administration, again, speaks out more strongly against this, I think we're going to only see this escalate. And the Biden administration's Department of Justice should absolutely get involved here in cracking down on some of the illegal protests, as well as helping to investigate who actually leaked this draft opinion in the first place, which was clearly all an attempt to really drum up this opposition to the opinion and hopefully get it changed.
And real quick, any final thoughts?
Sure. Well, I am a pro-life person. I really hope to see the justices stand strong in the face of this intimidation and continue with their attempts to overturn Roe v. Wade. Ultimately, this is an issue for federalism to decide, and each state should have the opportunity to make the decision about whether or not they want to ban abortions, because there is no right in the Constitution for women to kill their unborn child.
Well, Amber, thank you so much for coming on. We always appreciate your analysis.
Thank you.